the one who did the same today in the meeting for the leaders. Your Excellency, we have also your daughter, Nzikur. Your daughter is here. She's also one of our flag bearers here in the city. And she also heads a team that is mobilizing for us. And the rest are people who make this happen, our staff. Your Excellency, members in this community, Geoffrey, I want you to translate this before I invite Muzei.
Ba Ameripe Olalia Ondrosidose the Amavule Party my Secretary General Eche ba wara mupi press conference do Malia Ondrosidike duchere Uganda vile atanva Yoweri Kaguta Museveni bo kini ba mupi yoko sector afa bani ba Emuzu president ni muzu campaign oko tio dazo ko West Nile da chita girko kili ruse obia ikiri asidrese kene yondia chimuke ya even if or for ba West Nile ni saro ini yore bambo matierisi.
Your Excellency, while we are the other side of the country, you find some people who don't talk good about issues to do with roads that are done by your government, under your leadership, especially security roads and roads that connect us to the neighbors to easy security but also to easy business. The community here has developed so well and so fast because you opened up the border markets but also easy the communication in terms of the road network with South Sudan and East Congo. Want to thank you because it has been able to boost the business in the area, but also most importantly, it is something where the women, one of the most vulnerable groups, have been able to come up on their own to be able to fend for themselves and fend also for their families. So on behalf of that vulnerable group, allow me to say thank you because these are mothers who make the homes have life. But I also want to introduce you to the people in this area. People in Arua.
Secretary General Kenny, Paris de Malia, Girko, Atava, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni Nzi, Eyo Gate Manese, Etozo Fozo, Paris, Bane Afozu de Malia, Okone, Etozo, Aymafozizo, Dika Paris, a Gate Mane, Banonzi, Kakao, Girkor de Paris de Malia Baini, a Gufeno de Fort, Atavan Kiliko. Tamavu West Nile do Girko Banonzi de Kwaza Komangere, Girko de Mazimu Peresaf Sudania, Azede Mukala Kongo dia, Fediane, Eyo Okone Tizu, Afozizu, Imakuma Gate zo de Atimuke, il a dit de se or for Fessaro, Dutere Madrid, Uganda Villa Netchedene.
My brothers and sisters, our parents in West Nile, allow me to take this opportunity on behalf of the NRM party to invite His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of the Republic of Uganda, the National Chairman of the National Resistance Movement, and also the Presidential Flag Bearer, our leader in the party, our leader in the country, but the leader who even leads his opponent. And he's a rallying point for all the young, the old, the mature, all people from different parts of the country. But most importantly, those who used not to be valued by the communities find in him the warmth of being a parent to the youth, to the women, people with disabilities, the albinos, mention them. Welcome, Your Excellency.
After Zaken, il est devenu du Bambonia Izo, Bagubipi du Chezafepi, Uganda, du Chezafepi, Badriane. Ba veni biteza fepe ba get yo tipi eve de nende de fera fepe ba chope de ni biteza fepe ba Uganda de ne diadra e ya yozo obe West Nile ya dika Uganda de be underdos.
The leaders who are here, Secretary General, the ministers, the members of Parliament, and the people of West Nile. Ingonia. Our
Mininde. Bambo Kene, ba dricheba ibe ondro sedia de chedredria ba dricheba dinine dricheba kusere sede ba West Nile de easy me driche asi alose dika vamborse.
First of all, I thank you for the support you have shown for the NRM for all these years.
Kene ife mina odfo ngere atite mene fe NRM ne elikaka odi maladiarse.
Even today when I came, I could see a lot of warmth and enthusiasm in the population.
Andro ini muria ine aye kofi badra malia ngere badra malia.
I was a bit worried about the people who gathered near the airport and near the roundabouts, because those were very close to one another.
Ba pindaga parima geye ba trading center magaye dikisas kone ikita magaye nyenya corona mayose.
You know, during this campaign, we are emphasizing sending the word through the radios and indirect methods rather than the rallies which we used to use when we had no problem.
Kini tio dazandro domalia eyo eni yo opor kene oduko toto de ba fe griko radio malia se griko olia se adinanda dorle ban ba trazwa ngirle kwa skone udo malia zote.
Therefore, the organizers of the NRM, if they want to organize some reception, they should make sure people stand 2 meters from one another and they are not squeezed, they are not gathered together.
Kini ba dicheba NRM vile de kakile trata zino otoane ba ma otore aguma toki mesele miteri richiche ba matraki yangu alotu elo mambako.
Otherwise, the other people were doing it very well because they were staying in the verandas of their shops and then away from there, which is much safer.
Kini ba zere rekete ye kilili aoke majolo kwa tia rekire izire rero ere alandani.
And I really thank you for the warm welcome.
Kini ifi awadefo emeni saro emeni ye yesi dresi dika ye koserese.
Let us perfect that method of being safe.
Kini otita bana azo kilili azo suzuko de mamu dile mati dile.
I did not stand up to wave to you because I don't think that I fear to stand up. I can stand up.
Kini itenite nga buwe kanuko fomu tkari dire miziko adani kini iyo urisi kanuko ito korune kota ito ngara.
I have the equipment for safety, the K95. Do you have it there?
Kini afabani suba ndetia de evote.
I can even put on a face shield.
Ito vini ye ndetia silbani suwa ndeti se azori se de ito vini sura.
Understand and wave.
Ito di nga baki zindora.
Safely for myself.
Erinadu ini kilili ikamuzu difuza azori beko beni.
But the reason I don't want to stand is that I don't want to encourage people to gather.
Asisile ini fozu baki zukuru ile no beke orovini yo de yazoko.
Because that's where the infection comes from.
Da giriko azori ni muzure.
The proximity.
Emini arzo nye me givure.
And some of them don't even have masks.
Azade mandriti even afabanu somvo de yo.
And even if they have the masks, they may not the type that can stop.
Afabanu somvo de katwa de tirate chovena adri uro kilite ban leba su azode sere ekora.
It may stop you from infecting another person.
Etometri baze ni azode fezura
by containing what you sneeze out.
Afamina of mitiere etofo baze mo roti evenera.
But it may not protect you from being infected because those cotton masks are not foolproof.
Te chani nga mietri baze la nimina azode fezoko askona fade mazade kina latoko.
Therefore, when I don't stand up, it's really because I don't want our people to infect one another.
Ani ikadi nga buwe baki fo ziko de ere askoni intel azode merero ko baze ma fezode baze ne koruse.
And I would appeal to all the stakeholders to stop endangering our people.
Ita I ba dicherero de vodria kene yeta ene yere ma fe azode ma warko ma yaki yeta drifupira de lade.
This disease is very dangerous. Last night I was watching a young girl of 5 in the US who died.
Kina azode onzine adze ni se ere na US ya zanva zewaria elibeta uni drazodse.
Therefore, this idea that the disease that does not kill children is not correct. We lost the head of the youth council in one of the districts called Uganda. This was just a young engineer. We lost two chairmen in Lango area. One of them, the chairperson of Kole. Up to now, we have lost 139 people. If of course, the death rate has been low because of the precautions we took. Otherwise, in countries like the USA, in the last 8 months, they have lost 250,000 people. A 250,000. A 250,000. Therefore, it's very, very serious. Let's be patient. We are beginning to get vaccines, and even here we may get treatment. But in the meantime, let us be very, very, very cautious. Therefore, when you don't see me stopping, you don't see me standing to greet, it is because I really want you to be safe. During the day, I spoke to the leaders about the ideology and the strategy of the NRM. West Nile NRM vile debe otita NRM vile duchezaner madria. How do you translate ideology and strategy? Ideology is like otita. It's not otita. It is the way of thinking. Yes. Egata. Huh? Egata. Okay. And then strategy is the method you use. Strategy is more of otita. No. Geriko. The method you use to get what you want to get. Geriko mini muzu pari family suru suzuri. So during the day, I spoke to the leaders about the strategy of the NRM. Etusi injetayo Geriko NRM vler madria. And the ideology. And the ideology. Azene gata madria. And I told them how in the 1960s we rejected the ideology of Opendu. Kinele kalaza dribese e gayo Opendu vlerese. Where people were emphasizing Opendu. Lazerikanda yonze totone Opendu madria. I am a Catholic, I am a Protestant, I am a Muslim, I am a Rugubara, I am a Catholic, Islam, Yelubara, Gondi Modria. I am a Mnyankore, I am a Mnyankole. We rejected that. Yes, those are important for cultural, for marriage, but not for politics. Keniyora ke moke eyo aja jazo di Modria, eyo suruni di Modria, tiadene eyo banbati o dazo di si Modria ko. And of course, religion is to prepare us so that we go to heaven. And to also know how to I can put on these masks. When I have this mask, even if you have corona, it will not attack me. I can even put a face shield. Because you need to protect the nose, the mouth, and the eyes. Because it can infect you through the eyes
micho azori su girko mi level sera
or through the mouth
micho su mitivu sera
or through the nose.
micho su mi mvuvu sende
So I can put on this
icho afari surua erne na wadala
and
surua la susaro aladin
stand and wave at people,
icho vendinga waiba ki zira ikatele raria
or even put on a face shield to protect the eyes.
icho vena fabani bande te ku pepe di surua.
But I'm worried about the people infecting one another.
Iyo orisi iyo azodin ngazura wazo ikayo le yararisi.
And when the leader stands, then they gather to get near.
Baba richewa de kakipa so erife wiki traru tuolu enye.
It makes the gathering worse.
Erife ba tatara nita nyanya.
So that's why I don't stop
Asile ini paso zo korerde
or stand.
kan kungazo korerde.
I'm not here to kill people. I am here to.
Imuni de baki odiko.
I have grandchildren at home.
Yanzi manzike kuleche.
The schools have opened.
Skulu nziki di banzi skulu matibo.
But I'm still sending them cautiously.
Inga skulu de matinzi anzi matipezo yere.
Except for the candidates.
Pelo ba klasi ya sizu di Malia. Banonve candidate classes already. Class ya sizu di Malia de.
So if we are careful to not send the children to go to school, how can we now risk people in the public? You just gather, doesn't matter.
Kini akadia drimilebe akatwa nzima tipelo faru muskulo leko ameto de fe obeke traru mwazo disu ngongonero.
So I was telling you that during the day
kini te tu si iyo
we spoke to the leaders
anzaya baba duchawaro debe
about the ideology and strategy of the NRM.
Kini anzayo girko NRM vle di Madrid.
How in the 1960s we rejected the ideology of emphasizing Opendu.
Kini ele kaleze drive se egata bane ba yazo anko aya onduba bandu ba penzo yazo pendu se emiamina do kone emidini dine emisuru dine de eganda se.
That was the problem that time.
Da andra yo chokoro eudasire.
For us, we emphasized Edri Nyaza.
Kene ene banda si kongoloko bada Edri Nyaza Madrid.
The needs of the people.
Afo beni le ma Edri Maza kozo dike.
And these Edri Nyaza are similar.
Eyo bane Edri Nyazo dike jiki jiji.
All the tribes need food.
Surundundu de leki nyane.
They need medicine.
Leki arora.
They need transport.
Leki atipa.
They need education.
Leki unita.
They need to get out of poverty.
Le mefuki oliomalia sera.
So why do you waste time with Opendu when you have got enough problems?
Me this is onze Opendu Madrid adiosia.
Dealing with the Edrinyaza of the people.
Mini size as Opendu Madrid maporete kenza yo bada Edrinyaza Madrid.
That's how the NRM departed from the other groups.
Kene da digriko NRM ne sele tozo group waziandra onze Opendu Madrid averi.
I think they will put my address to the leaders on the radios and you can listen to it.
Kene yota inze tusida lema ba radio ra obe meriki yota inze dara.
In detail.
Meriki me fin ma fi ma idea kilili.
But for now,
Saad sede
instead of repeating what I told the leaders,
ini tozo yota inze tusibo de malebe abezor ma paria.
I would rather go to the two main topics, two main issues.
Kini idimu iri ambo de mavu. Iri ambo de vu idimu
This is the issue of wealth and the issue of jobs.
Yo lonyevle repeke yo zivle rebe.
Because these are the ones which affect every family.
De ki akulo lo no tokofera.
The wealth, the NRM has been telling you that you must get out of working for the stomach.
NRM bi yo ba manga zilu alo ba lene ko.
Working for the stomach only.
Ba ngalo zi alo ba lene ko.
There is a way they call it. Working for the azinga aleni.
Kene ba ngalo zi alo ba lene ko.
Only working for the stomach.
Ba mangalo zi alo ba lene ko.
This is a big problem in many parts of Uganda.
Ikene yo azino chokoro ambo Uganda ma angotre malia.
According to the census of 1969,
Kene census under year 1969 is Somalia.
96 of the homesteaders were working for Azinga Aleni.
Kene aku kalarom dinazia indra zingalo imalene.
Only 4% were working for money.
Kene suturu alumadie de indra zinga majaba nende robi suzu ende benni.
The census of 2014 recently,
Kene eyovan obike lazuli alifurdini mudrin susiturus diare.
68% of the homesteaders were still working for Azinga Aleni.
Kalega de noro metro aludria de kinga kiria zinga imalene.
Yes, there had been some change, but you can see we still have a big group.
Kene ada ojata biye de che te ba trenga kiria zinga imalene.
So our struggle in many parts of Uganda has been Azinga za Jebani.
Kene adi designé Uganda ma pariyo ngir de maliare ere mini azingazo mini lonyi susu mi jebende mi azinga mi jebani adini alomi alene ko.
That has been our struggle.
Da ebi adi diza NRM vleri.
And I must report that I started this work with the Yuabanyankore.
Kene ile dilo dia edo anda zide ba iba suru de ebe.
In 1966 when I was still a schoolboy.
Ele kalazia de niaziase.
Until
I
did some work, then we had to go away and fight. When we came back, I resumed.
Kene yingazi ziwarara moving ngamo didi even avela oven azira uronda in ngarase.
But by 1995 they had woken up.
Ele kaloram de ntausi diadi de badi nga do sibo.
And they started doing Azinga za Jebani.
Ele kaloram de ntausi nga do seredo de azinga e majabane nde.
Through milk.
Giriko lesu vurse.
Through commercialization of milk.
Edo di lesu zi.
So they woke up.
Enga do urse.
And when I did that pilot project, that trial in my local area there, that's how I came to the rest of the country.
Ikadimo azido bi ivo kulia dalo bibo in a direct kili imudiji Uganda ma paraze de maliadwa.
Went making shouting that everybody should wake up.
Kene ile de oduko fe kene badia menga do urse teyo.
There has been some success like in Masaka. With coffee.
Kene pariaze masaka pela de malia ibi kawa mazoza e promotira o turira agwenene lonyisu imajaba beni.
Some areas of Bundubujo has done well with the coffee and with the cocoa and with the palm oil.
Kene Bundubujo bare ezoki vene afara kawara azere ezoki kokwara shane lonyi suza dare ednyaza be oturura.
Some areas of Toro, of Chigezi have gone into tea.
Kene pariaze Kigezi pile Toro pile de edodo de majani zoria.
Kalangara has done very well with palm oil.
Kene pari Kalangara there ba mbera zo.
Some areas have done well with bananas.
Pariaze ke abu ezoria.
Lango is doing well with sunflower and other and simsim and so on.
Kene va langwa dia ba ke sunflower zo azene anyuzo.
In West Nile, you had woken up long ago.
Kene West Nile ya dia mingando duer sidrio.
You had started growing cotton even in the colonial times.
Emidwanda pamba ezo.
And you had also started tobacco.
Emidovene taba ezo indi.
Now, my only problem with West Nile
Iyo ivela otokoro West Nile berry
is that when you did ngazu, waking up,
emini didozo ngazu buwedaria.
you did so without otita.
Eminga bu otita koko.
Because maybe the otita was all right at the beginning.
Kini saa zisi otita dandra muke doria dada.
When you started, because I passed here in 1968,
Yeli kaleza dinarose.
and I saw people growing tobacco.
Ine agurukiri tabezo.
I think that at that time the population was still small,
Kini hobi makalefi anda sara siwere.
and I think people had many acres of land.
Nyakuenda agudiangere.
Now, when you have got many acres of land,
Nyakukari midiangere.
you grow tobacco, you can get money.
Micho tabezo ra micho silingi sura.
If you plant tobacco in 10 acres, in 100 acres, you can get good money.
Eka tabezo amvue kamudri malia kanokwe katoro malia micho silingi ambo sura.
But the problem is that you have fragmented land.
Eyo amavala de waro kene amolituro di nyaku nyeri.
Through inheritance.
Amani nyaku kwa biengineer se.
I hear the average of land now is 2 acres per family.
Nyaku akuelo ni sare se delo keri toko.
Now, with that small piece of land, tobacco is no longer, you can no longer pass the otita.
Kene nyaku says the word da se otita tabadira den dikililiko.
This is because you have got only 1 acre to look for money.
Kene nyakulu mevu dia dia teperlo eka lo mintozo silingi ndazo.
The second acre is for cassava.
Eke rizura media no lasa.
For the food for the family.
Nyaka Arua kuni nyazo.
So you are one-eyed. You have got one eye.
If enemy mile dialo.
When it comes to money.
Kadita send evle yoria.
If something goes wrong with the one eye, then you are in trouble.
If enemy mile alora beya zo nzene kayera media waro no malia.
That's why I insist on otita now.
Kine yo din yozo pama yedo otita kiliri rede.
So that the 1 acre,
Kine ka lo de
you use it for something that will give you enough money to support your family.
Meria yo chopi mini silingi fe piangire chop me agu agate zora yezo.
That's why I am happy to hear that in Yumbe, people have now gone for fruits.
Yeah, there ko se rezo kine yumbia au ke chura pati fisa.
We have even built a factory there.
Ba sivi no kalamvo dara.
So we need in areas of Zombo, they are doing coffee.
Paris Zombo di Malia ba Zombo la ba coffee sa kawasa.
Coffee in one area, in 1 acre is reasonable.
Kawa baka kene sa eka lo Malia rodunite
The income.
send the minisu eleni are.
So, but what is crucial is that we all wake up.
Kene rodribe ba dia mengo duosi.
Because even when the land is small,
Nyaku katwa de wari arote.
you can do things like pigs if you are not Muslims.
Mito afaze nguruwe pele de ke zore ka de Islam ne Korea.
The Nguruwe don't need a big piece of land.
Kene ngurube lene nyaku ngere ko.
You can do chicken for eggs.
Mito uzo agbes ni bes uzura.
They don't need a big piece of land.
Lene nyaku ngere ko.
Mushroom.
Mito edrike zora.
Later on, we can even look at some types of vegetables.
Mito ribindondondo de ke zo. Silingi suzura.
And I want to do big projects of fish farming in the Nile Valley.
Kene ile ebi tambaza ye Nile Valley.
Because I have got 4 fish ponds in Kaumu in Ruero
kene evo fish pond kisu luerua
in half an acre,
amvu hafana kamalia
and my people get 68 million shillings from those 4 ponds.
bara ke silingi suele ne milioni kaleza de aro
So
fish pond sudamalia
this Nile Valley can all be an area, a zone of fish farming.
Nile zone ni toke ne ga afa zo amani kilira ebi zo amani kilira.
Then also dairy cattle, you can have a few cows in the shed.
Micho timatamba warendre ka kuda malia
That also brings income.
Revenue nga silingi jire lonyi jimi jabanera.
And it is also good for nutrition.
Ere moka mi ruose dika akuma ruose.
So therefore, in the case of West Nile,
Vlerdi,
the people had Ngazu long ago as far as money is concerned.
Kene ba West Nile renga kando ruose drio baka yosen ndazor yoria.
But the problem was is now Otita now. Maybe it was not.
Eyo de waro ere otitane.
And once we solve that, West Nile will be on a good road.
Akade yo titonzi de veler October West Nile dinga griko kilili zozo speed sirimalia. Mbele malia.
Now that deals with income, with wealth, but also it deals with the jobs.
Kene yora bedero lonyi suzabe dika azi suzabe.
Because when you do commercial farming,
eka anvu ya za silingi suzuri ya
you need some workers.
Le aziba madriki mevote.
You employ yourself,
Mi azife midri,
but you also employ others.
mi vina azife bazi drinde.
I am a farmer myself.
Eba anvu ya pene eva awado.
If you come to my area, you find I have quite a few employees.
Kine kemu evo da mi su eba vene isi vene bazi evila anvu di maliara.
There is one parish in Fort Portal.
Paris ya zina alo Fort Portal.
They also woke up
Enga kando duwe sira.
and took on our message.
Duki oduka ene federa.
Now, their leader the other time told me that he was not employed himself before they woke up.
Kine danga podi enga kwata ene vine anda zio.
But he's now employed, earning money, 30 million shillings a year.
Sadi se idea zibe isilingi su milioni kalina ili alormalia.
So he has employed himself,
Fe ini aziwo.
but he has also employed another 6.
Fe aziba azia nenende.
So that means now 7 people, including himself,
Bazi riture remada piedria yezingaria.
who are not earning income previously,
Esukina nda sende okoroko.
are now all earning income,
Kisar se dria sende Suria.
and they have jobs.
Evo aziti.
So commercialization of agriculture and the elimination of Azinga, Aleni, will create many jobs in agriculture.
Kene anvu ya zabani ane robi suzu lonyi suzu de erenga fe azini surba trene erevinga liodra kuselia sita.
Now that's source of wealth, source of jobs.
Kene da girkovane lonyi suzure da girkovane azi suzure.
But then there are other people who can help us create jobs.
Ba azikete etoke amazaku azi suzura.
These are the Balonyi Bay from outside.
Ba lonye be engaba mvedike.
There are so many of them in Kampala now,
Bara kene kambala mbiri.
and in Mukono, and in Jinja, and so on.
Kene mukono ase jinja se kimbiri.
Chinese,
Azeriki Chinese ke,
Indians,
azeriki mahindi ke,
the Middle Eastern.
ba azeringa ki Middle East ya.
They are all flocking in.
Yeke firia Uganda.
Why? Because of peace.
Asienzu mayose.
Of course, there is also the market.
Kene yo tu vler ne Uganda dia tu nya de tirse.
And all they needed was electricity
Yo anda ene lere atene
and good roads.
nzela alane.
We are also working on the railway,
Isa serele made zingaria.
so they are coming because
Yeke muria.
they can make money.
Itoke silingi sura.
And by coming, they also help us create jobs.
Kakedi mubo ekevini grikonda mani azifezo iyo ni yadi malia.
But they also help us generate money for taxes.
Ekevina mazako robi anda kanukolonye nda amani tozo musoro fezo.
And producing goods for the market.
Tozo afesuzu tudi malia.
Now, so therefore, on the issue of jobs and wealth, that is the way forward. Now, in order to help you start off, we have started very many efforts. Put some different funds. Operation Wealth Creation.
Operation Wealth Creation, yeah.
Women Fund. Now recently we introduced another one called the Emyoga. The Emyoga is a Nyankore word which I borrowed, which was the old word for specializations, our traditional specializations.
Kine Emyoga de Tidrisi. If you under the ere totone bero, mini azizi alone bezongazo mboro.
Like the blacksmith.
Eyobano ba oka diwa di idrile.
That is his moga.
Dabanonve atando romilmini ye made.
The carpenter, the woodworker.
Ba azingape ba opie patibede.
That would be his moga.
Da evele miogare.
Then you would get a fisherman.
Baby. Although the Banyankore were not eating fish, but there are some people who were on the lakes. Those also, that will be their moga. So this time, you can see, even in the modern sense, the miogas are there. You have the metro workers. These young people who make doors, who make windows. You have the carpenters. You have the ones who are doing baking bread. All those are the different miogas. So we have said, let us create a fund for each one of them. In each constituency. Pari county alwalo kan constituency alwalo MP ni adwalni alwalo de malia maden dondondo alwalo.
Why did we take the constituency and not the district?
Asile bane constituency duzu ban district duzu kore adone.
We thought the district was a bit far.
Kene district e ne gar serero.
The constituency was nearer.
Constituency re nyami ageyedia.
And that's why we said now that should be the center.
Kene center de ma de constituency adia.
So that these people can form their association
from
the village and the parish.
Village here, parish here.
And those they have their branches there. Then at the constituency level they have a unified circle. Which is like a local bank for them. And each year we shall be adding money. And they can also save and add on. So that should eventually make a big bank. Concentrating on a particular moga. And this money will belong to the members, not to anybody.
Sende de ngadre o be fipia mutire malia de ni ade no bazeneko.
The money will send. You see these Operation Wealth Creations and so on.
Kini sende mini ne Operation Wealth Creation ro as the EPA.
Part of the problem has been the officials we send are the ones who give, who select whom to give.
Ye war mazi biedri baba no pay the modulator ke pe ba ma fashion ya ediere ne.
I give Museveni or I give Anite.
Kini me yo me ma fe Museveni kan ko ma fe Anite ni.
So the decision is for these officials.
Yo de megata ndene ade ba wara de ni.
To decide whom to give.
Yo zo e ma fe adidiere.
But in this case, it is the members.
Tesa di se otite mi oga diri malia ba fipia mutire malia ke pe ni.
The money will go to the members.
Send the mo ba de evo.
Not to anybody else.
Ba zevoko.
So if you misuse it, we shall lock all of you up.
E ka yo uro nzise ma mititi woro joa.
Democratically.
Opetase.
But it will be your fault, not anybody's fault.
Erengade zata mini ade no ba zeneko.
Because the money is with you.
Send and there asko ere maybe ade no ba zeveko.
Now, all that is to deal with the issue of wealth.
Yo de ki woro yo bani lonyin dazore.
And jobs.
Azinda zabe, azifezabe, lonyin dazo azina azifezo.
Now, in order to make it easier for the wealth and jobs,
fezo yo de netazo wakoko lonyin sizo azina azis fezo wedri.
The government has put aside a lot of money
Gamete ba sende kalangiri
for infrastructure.
Tozo afaten zelapile arojo pile ngoni di yosizu bridge pie ngoni yosizu.
So when you look in the file here,
Kini kana evele bukwora
all the sectors are there.
Tindondondo gamete vele di maselinge driaba fedara.
For instance, when you look at education,
Eko unitane
the 4 districts of Maracha,
kini district Maracha
Arua, Koboko, Yumbe,
Maracha Arua Koboko Yumbe
have a total population of primary school students of 500,000.
Kini population ba ango di malia kiba alufu turtoi
504,000 children in the primary school.
Kini alufu turtoi fi su school anzike primary school.
Now you can see this is a very big, and the primary schools in these districts are a total of 631.
Kini school district di malia reke troazia kalina de nealo.
The government ones are 488.
Gamete vele reke turusu kalera ordinaro.
Private ones are 143.
Aguni atule ndondo de ere troalo.
Secondary schools,
Kalera ordinaro.
government secondary schools in the area
Gamete ma secondary schools zangonde de malia reke
are 43.
kalisu de nina.
But private secondary schools are more, they are 68.
School waguni oni ndondo de ke kaliazia de nearo.
That gives you a total of 111.
Toro alu muduni alo wororia.
So then you go to health.
Ikamu eyo ruoti veladia, arojo veladia.
Health has worked very well with immunization.
Ngazi kilili eyo bane boss azo anzinyere obepedi keserese.
So many children have been immunized.
Anzinyere trebo so ya zo de tizura.
That's why the population has grown.
Fedia ne obi makala fe Uganda ne zozo rudi.
So all the details are here.
Eyo ndede ma drie yo wan osi kala drie oro ati.
Because what I'm talking about is just a summary of the manifesto.
Ine nzede delo bane tinitra liero rike.
Manifesto is a very big document which those people have.
Kini NRM vele manifesto dere ambo badria vute.
And all what I'm talking about is just a summary of.
Iyo ine nzede delo bane liero rike.
Because I can see the health center 4s, the health center 3s here.
Kini health center sudiki health center na debe iki nedwara.
So the only problem with health
Iye waro Ruti vile arozo pieri.
is the stealing of drugs.
Eyo bani aro guzuri.
Many of the drugs end up in Congo.
Aro tre eke foi kala Kongwaria.
And South,
Baji Kongwa.
and South Sudan.
Azeni South Sudan ya. Bazinga waro bedi kijini.
But our scientists have worked out a computer arrangement
Kini besu scientists yeke ondo azeni etozo computers yodiki yazo. Bareke obizubo.
which will enable us to trace the medicine from the factory
Bangado aro de mapamvo be perubani dezuria.
to the national medical stores,
Chazo pere national medical stores ya.
to the district hospital,
Echazo district marojoa.
to the patient.
Chazo pa aronde supi azobe devo.
So this stealing of drugs will end.
Kini yoba na ro guzorojoa ringa derora.
Now, on the side of water,
Yo yivler malia.
we are not emphasizing the water so much because we are still busy with the other sectors, with the roads and so on.
Kini banganda si yo yivler madria toko askone yo azinjila pile ngon dikenda nga imodiangiri.
But we still, even with the little money we were putting, we have been able to do some work.
Kini silingi wariaba na baada arasi aziyozi yar wariara.
For instance, I can see that here Arua
Ika na Arua dia.
Arua district
Arua district ya.
has got 1,090 villages.
Village ya falo Kaliorom.
The villages without a source of clean water in Arua,
Villages ye la kokodeki.
there are,
Arua diariki.
there are 260 out of the 1,000.
Turu rikaliazia. Falo Kaliorom malia.
That means 24%.
Ifini kene.
the
Esele
one-
kalidi ni suturu alumadriere.
They are the ones without a source of clean water.
Iki ye la kokoni.
The ones with the source of clean water are 830,
Ye la bereke turu aro kalina.
which is 76%.
Percentage kaliaziri dine. Azia turu aludria.
Koboko
Kawa kwa.
is quite high,
Ruru.
83%
Percentage kaliaro dine na turu aludria.
of the villages have a source of clean water.
Ye la leni ache.
Maracha is also 84%,
Maratani kaliaro dine suturu aludria ye la be.
and Yumbe 77%.
Yumbeni kaliezi dine aziri turu aludria ye la be.
Now, apart from water for drinking,
Yimvuza makala.
we are also working on water for production.
Ide eyo azideki yazo. Okalamvo pene ngoni diladi ni.
These days we are also using solar power.
Kini turo bavene sola mapa akwayo ndi sola makwayo atsiba ne tra etuka sere.
Now, for instance, there is a solar-powered water supply system
Kini yi sola ni ini bane tra sola sere mazi.
in Nyangira.
Nyangilia kobokwa.
I don't know where that one is. Koboko.
Nyangilia is in Koboko.
Yes, and also in Maracha.
Azeni vene marachache.
Then you come to so apart from this solar-powered water pumping, which is really aiming at irrigation,
Kini kala ite bane tra etu otise sola se de makala.
the rest of the water is for drinking.
Yeze de ki didria bane ayo mvuzo askuna azita ban tra sola se de mazi bani mu anyaka ke zo amvueli esingo ni ta tepere woro be de ayo mvuzaro.
either piped water
Echwa de ipa ipotala reira.
or water from the boreholes.
Echwa de yinga pi bohola reira.
Now, on the side of irrigation,
Kar de kalabani yiye yuzu nyake zozuru malia.
there is a project at Biachichi Valley Tank in Ajia sub-county in Arua district.
Kene village ya zene bachichi Ajia sub-county ya aleni hapa yi ayo nyake zozu ozoko kora.
Now, feasibility study and design of INVP irrigation scheme in Arua district.
Kene azene INVP irrigation scheme ye Arua city edi Arua district ya.
The Valley Tank is a separate project.
Kene azi Valley Tank vlere project ndoni.
And it will keep 20 million liters.
Erenga yimatamba lita million kalir.
And the design and construction of valley tanks in Yumbe and Arua district.
Kene ba eyo ede bane chozo yite bane yabulioli alike sizo Yumbe azeneruo.
Feasibility study, design and construction of small-scale irrigation schemes in Arua and Yumbe.
Kene ba azidi ma urecho tira tiku ngoner mazi area district bana olana di malia woro.
But some of the smaller towns have got water.
Kini town where di malia yichi.
For instance, there is Wandi.
Kini Wandi yichi.
In Arua.
Arua dia.
Omugo.
Omugo yichi.
Okolo.
Okolo yichi.
Now then there is Koboko.
Koboko yichi.
Then there is Maracha Ovujo.
Maracha kin Ovujo dia ye lati.
Yumbe Midigo.
Yumbe Midigo ye lati.
Kuru.
Kuru ye lavinete.
That is piped water now.
The bane also pipe was a large letter.
So on the issue of water, although we had not put as much money as we did for the roads and electricity, but we are moving.
Kene tatwandra ere selenge bazu imodi angere kurate imurie dile.
Now on the roads, you know what we have done on the roads.
Kene nzila modia eni ayedin nzila singopiara.
We did the Karuma Pakwach road all the way to Oraba.
Kene ayandra edozo Karuma Pakwachia deni peroraba.
We are now working on Atiak, Ajumani, Laropi, Moyo.
Kene sari samade Atiake, Ajumani, Laropi, Moyo ni deria.
The contractor is there doing the work.
Contractor by Suda were in the area murudule.
We are also going to do Laropi, Moyo, Yumbe, Koboko.
Kene amavini mu Laropia, Moyo, Yumbia, Koboko the area.
Or rather Moyo from Moyo, because Laropi is already covered from on the other side.
Kene Laropi nwa yebo dito tonidozo Moyo.
So these projects are either they are finished or they are ongoing.
Kene totonese azidi mazu deke yewa aziriki muredule.
But I still have a date.
Kene Maria zia changa idiote.
For the road from I think either Nebi on the way to Goli on the border.
Kini Maria cha idiote Nebi dia muzu Goli bodarale.
And then a road which will go around the border and come back to Arua here.
Njila mupi Goli se de MVP border se pereru diare. MVP vurau diare.
Now that road will have to be done.
Then the
road between here through Terego to Moyo. And then the road along the Nile from Pakwach, Rhino Camp, up to somewhere maybe we shall see where it will stop.
Kini njilenga pipa kwatia mupi mirimatiesi dine rano kambiasi dine de bangane kanire singwani even nga yera.
Now, these are the main tarmac roads in West Nile.
Kene didi njela yene ba le ba ma tamakra ba ma balamu sira West Nile malia di adike.
Now we are working on the railway, repairing the railway from Tororo up to Gulu, from Gulu up to Pakwach.
Kene e divine zingare railway madria line of ino ladia di malia woro.
They said the road between Kampala and here is now not in a good condition in the areas of Agung.
Kene njela ba yo ini njela engapi Kampala kacha Agunga diabo emuzu pere pakwacha sodolere mauro di onze park malia di mauro onze.
I'm being told that the process of signing a contract with the constructor has started, and the union said they have some money to start the work, and so on and so forth.
Kene unra yoke ine bade ya contractor be briti kartasi dria echozo njela di madria zingazo yondere muro dile.
Now that is on the roads and the railway.
Dade eyon njela pidri railway pier madria ri.
When it comes to energy,
Emuzu yo atidri malia.
Of course, we have extended power to many parts of West Nile now.
Sarisi bo se dia ati parindondondo West Nile dia di malia bo.
Starting with the Nyagak power.
Edozo Nyagak se.
And when we had that small dam, then we worked on how to distribute the electricity.
Dam were da mavutia inga die zibeto atida wa ngongo na madrie.
I think by now the wires have reached Koboko, they have reached Moyo.
Side se kine line ni die chade Koboko bo chata vini Moyo bo.
But then the power has been unreliable.
Achinde ebini adikili toko.
But that's why we built Karuma.
Asisile belebana Karuma dam ni sizuru dibele de.
The only issue now is to build the 132 kV line.
Eyo didi asar so pot efere chozo ati ongbobe torwalo kaluna ni kV di mal griko di ijizu line di ijizu eturu sevene belons bo.
To bring the electricity to West Nile.
Bed of in Sibo as in a bangarayo ati jizu ati chop ya drip stable and reliable. Asiba zabe dredi ejizu amavela West Nile yadwa.
So otherwise the wires are now in many places.
If any atima wire they are chiki deeper in Duri Malia West Nile diabo.
There are so many details here. I trying to read them will be very tiresome.
Kene otitane reke angere lazo lalare donga fe beta and zarodeni.
They are all here.
Yeki dia woroche.
Wendi, Yumbe Moyo.
Kini griko wandia, Yumbe Moyo, rima yaworo evudu ati malain.
On the Paraka, Odrama Chaku, Abidia project.
Edozo, on the Paraka, Odrama Chakwa, Chazu Peroru Bodadama. Details, is in documentable.
There are so many of them here, the projects for taking power.
Ekin dondo tre and the contractor nereke de side se dalati ezidoke zibo.
District by district, they are all
district alo malia se dria ekid wate.
So that is the plan for West Nile in terms of some summary of the details.
Kene da de yo NRM ne oto ba West Nile de ne ba kayon de la ali ruriare.
But there are socio-economic issues which I want to share with you.
Eyo ba da medri nyazani dika lonyi susuvile di madria ile yonze amabe.
One of them is the issue of the school fees.
Eyo azere yo anzivele school fees fezode.
I started free education in 1997.
Doki ne onita pernarele kalerom dine azirse.
in the primary schools,
And also primary schools Malia.
and later on I added the secondary schools.
Vutinia EG secondary schools Malia.
And each year I am putting 1.2 trillion.
Elia lalo se islingi ba do alo do trillion unita de Malia.
In UPE.
UPE Madria.
And 800 billion in USE.
Billion toroaro secondary unita secondary Madria.
But then you hear that children are being chased out of school.
Merikene badro anzeke school university.
And therefore, we need to agree, all of us, the NRM people, agree on that issue. Can the parents afford to pay?
Le NRM rama iki kili kene ba ziba tia NRM ma ziki matia kene baba anjitiba de choke school de ofera ya school fees de ofera ya.
If the parents can afford to pay, you tell us.
Kene tipika kake cho fees de ofera ba malo yene.
If they can't, then there should be no charges in schools.
Kake choko ba ma ofe ke school fees ko.
I think these school fees are the blockage for these young people to continue their education.
Kene school fees de cha dia titaro anje maunita mayos.
And you can see this from the figures.
Mito ne kala feba ne fe de maliara.
In the primary school, there are 10.7 million children.
Kene primary school wa anje ke million mudri do aziri.
But in the secondary schools, post-primary, post-secondary, all of them, they are less than 3 million.
Kene anje primary mavuti muba secondary chaki million nako.
So what happened to the other children?
Anje azidi million aziri do aziri aviki mungwa.
The ones who were in UPE, why did they not continue?
Under UPE the muki dile secondary akwa deose.
What stopped them?
Ade trikini.
My suspicion is it is these school fees.
E gata reto the school fees ni.
So I want us to really work on this and we agree. I don't want to force people, but I want us to agree.
Ile kine arke yere ama otiki ama iki ba yengone yo di madrie. Ile ne ba ke o mi opo se ko te ba ma arke nga yere ba I yo di madrie ba ya doni.
Now, one other issue is what I have already touched on, the issue of markets.
Eyo azere eyo chuvlere.
Now that people are beginning to wake up, you are beginning to see the problem of marketing.
Kene aguni de ngo duerse bo eni yo chuvle ne kilirse
what we produce.
A family to for jituori adone.
That's why we worked for the East African community.
Kene amazinga East African community ne odise.
We worked for COMESA.
Amazinga COMESA ne odise.
Worked for the Continental Free Trade Area.
Amazinga Continental Free Trade Area ne odise.
So that we can have a unified market of Africa.
Kini chu be nievler ma de amboyo.
It's not easy because people start, then they stop, but we have no alternative.
Adani kene wakoko ba ke do ba ke asi ba ke do ba ke nga paso te grikwazindo ne yo lebele ba njitu dikira.
The inadequacy of the market, the internal market not being enough.
Kini chu earlier de ne chazo kore.
Brings out more forcefully our long-standing position of never supporting our opendu.
Kene eyo tu di vlere febele ene eyo opendu vlere gazo sene.
Because it is really a waste of time.
Ereba seza.
Apart from all other problems, there is also
the
issue of market. Who will buy what we produce? Banyankole don't buy my milk. Why? I have milk, they have milk. They don't buy from me, I don't buy from them. The people who saved me are after the people of Kampala. Because the Kampala people don't have time to look after cows. they are in shops and in massage parlors when there's no corona.
Eki dokani ase, eki periban ba roti onrezo de mali ase.
So how will they get time to go in the rain and look after cows?
Choke se su mozuti ochezo ozo ali ase ngonuko.
But fortunately, they buy what we produce.
Dile baro eki afama iji ngazuti ocherele de je.
And what you say about milk, you can say about all the other products.
Kini yomini tonzele su modera reme tonze afaziba nditu di modera.
So when you hear people worried about the maize, there's too much maize, there's too much, the answer is East African integration.
Kini kanebako kaka matuyo, afazuda matuyo, afazudi matuyo, ifenerele eyobane be niki chizo afaloro, bani tuma kalafezizo, tuma sezi njizo de mamudrile.
You have seen how big the US is.
Kini ane US ngopia raya, masezi ambura ngopia raya.
They were having elections recently.
Ikiandra vote beri odi diedi.
One candidate by now has got 77 million votes.
Candidate ya loresu vote kalieziri dineziri millions.
This is Joe Biden.
Candidate Joe Biden.
President Trump has got 72 million.
Kene President Trump su kalieziri diniri million vote ne.
And here you are talking about a few 100,000 and then you...
There are millions that kalafazo gani madria. Ntoro road madria.
Really, I think ignorance is also a good thing.
Kini anie kosa sevena famukane.
When people are ignorant, they don't get worried. They don't have blood pressure.
Kini ba anie kolea de yaki urusiko.
But for our countries to develop, we need big markets.
Kini angwa madri ne zozo le tu madri ambo.
And that's why we talk of patriotism within Uganda, unity of Uganda, but also Pan-Africanism in Africa.
Kini yo maninze kini aleke ma suru aleke Uganda ne aleke ma be niero de banza yo disi.
Then there's the stealing of drugs I have already talked about.
Kini yo romo de inze yo de niebo.
So in short, these are the micro programs
Bazu aliero de yo wara ino tiri
for the Western Nile area.
West Nile ma angwadi ogogo.
Especially these 4 districts.
Totone district is so inte oladi adi madri.
So I thank you and I wish you good luck.
Our the first sorrow, if you are not the first sorrow, if you are not mungu mafia man dilebara.
Thank you so much for listening. People who have managed to listen to us, thank you so much. And Your Excellency, we want to thank you so much for the educative message you have given to us, the people in this area. Our for good night, Miramuke, God bless you. Good night. For the youth.
It's better to foster respect instead of fear and pain.
Cause a good school equals a better life.
Raising voices.
Osobola okubanga wali owulidde ku ky'okwewaawo ebbanga. Kino kitegeeza kulekawo ekifuba kiramba okuva ku bantu abakuliraanye okukendeeza ku nsaasaanya y'akawuka ka kolona. Naye nga lwaki kyetaagisa? Ewatali kwewaawo bbanga, omuntu alina akawuka asobola okusaasaanya ku bantu abalala 2 oba 3. Ate ne bano ne bakongerayo ku bantu abalala 2 oba 3. Era na bano ne bakongerayo ku bantu abalala 2 oba 3. Bwe batyo. Mu mwezi akawuka kasobola okuva ku muntu omu ne katuuka ku bantu 406. Wabula singa buli muntu asala ku bantu basinkana 1/2, omuwendo gw'abafuna akawuka gusalika mu bunnambiro. Buli muntu alina akawuka asobola okusiiga omuntu omu oba 2. ate na bano ne basiiga omuntu omu oba babiri. Kino kitegeeza nti obulwadde bujja kusaasaana katono. Nga mu mwezi omulamba akawuka kasaasaana okuva ku muntu omu okutuuka 15. Ago ge maanyi g'okwewaawo ebbanga. Lekawo ekifuba kiramba okuva ku buli muntu akuliraanye okendeeze ensaasaana y'akawuka otaasa obulamu. Bw'okola bw'otyo ojja kwetaasa otaasa abantu bo ate n'eggwanga lyo. Obubaka buno bukutuusibwako Minisitule y'ebyobulamu.
Winston Churchill named it the Pearl of Africa. Uganda is probably one of the most gifted countries in the world. The people, the food, the love, the climate, the culture, the scenery, and the peace and tranquility. Join us as we take you through the journey. The journey, live and exclusive to UBC, your public broadcaster, inspiring Uganda.
Are you money wiser? As we seek to improve our knowledge on the understanding of money matters, before any money leaves your life, ask yourself, am I money wiser?
The Be Money Wiser talk show is here to give you a platform to share your real-life financial experiences to be able to unlearn, relearn, and transform your life.
I took a loan. I invested the money and it disappeared.
We need to decipher and understand whether forex trading is indeed so risky or manageably risky for all of us to invest in.
Capital is
You can have trust with your clients, trust them anyhow that you can, as long as they are paying in cash.
Let's be money wiser.
Brought to you by
Your Health Chart is brought to you by National Medical Stores, World mandated to procure, store, distribute essential medicines and medical supplies to all public health facilities in the country.
Good evening, it's You Health Chat, proudly sponsored by National Medical Stores. My name is Sophia Matovu and I'm sitting in for Dr. Henry Dungu. November is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. Prostate cancer is the most prevalent cancer among men. 1 in 8 will have it at some point in their lifetime, and although the long-term prognosis is relatively good, that is 84% of the sufferers will survive it for 10 or more years, it can still be a threatening diagnosis. Now, here with me in studio to shed more light on the topic of discussion is Dr. Innocent Mutiaba, who is a clinical investigator at the Hutchison Center Research Institute of Uganda. Welcome to the show. Good evening, Doctor. How are you? Thank you so much for making time to make it for the show. Now let's get straight to our topic of discussion. What is prostate cancer? You know, when we talk about it, I can't take it for granted that everybody knows the medical perception of it.
Definitions are a good place to start. So I think I'll break the words into two: prostate and cancer. Broadly, when we think of cancer, we think of cells that are essentially multiplying in a way that is uncontrolled. Our body cells usually die off, and those that are meant to multiply to replace them do that in a way that is controlled. But a cancer cell does multiply without stopping, and it continues, and that control is lost. Now, cancer can arise in any part of the body. can be the skin, the eyes, it can be the bones, it can be inside the stomach, any part of the body. So when we say prostate cancer, we are referring to those uncontrolled cells within the prostate that are growing to produce a tumor that we call prostate cancer. Now the prostate is a part of the body that is essentially found in men. It's just after the bladder, and it contributes to the semen that men pass out, and its function essentially is to facilitate that process of ejaculation when it's functioning normally. Yeah, so those cells of the prostate, if they divide uncontrollably, they do produce what we call prostate cancer.
Now, what are the statistics of prostate cancer in Uganda?
So in Uganda, prostate cancer is the commonest cancer among men. When we speak of cancer statistics, we speak in terms of how many cases of patients per 100,000. And it's around about 50 men in 100,000 will develop prostate cancer per year. That is per year on an annualized basis from the statistics that we have. Yes.
So what could be the causes? Because, you know, much as you've explained it medically, but is there, how should I say, like a precursor, something that really sparks and sets it off for the cells to be able to multiply uncontrollably?
So the process of developing cancer is fairly complex. It's a multi-step process, and it happens over years. Now, the cause of why these prostate cancer cells may subsequently evolve into an uncontrolled subset that divides, produces a tumor is not clearly understood. What we know for sure is that if you have a family history that is fairly high in terms of people who have developed cancer, whether it doesn't necessarily need to be prostate cancer, but if you have relatives who have had prostate cancer, but also if you have relatives who have had other cancers such as breast, ovary, and colon, and pancreas, other adenocarcinomas, cancers that are similar to what we see in the prostate, your risk of developing prostate cancer is going to be fairly high. And the reason for that is that if a family has so many of these sorts of people developing different types of cancers, it does suggest that there is a gene. A gene is it's like the smallest component that makes up a cell, or what we are, or the DNA. There is a component of that gene in that family that predisposes them to develop these cancers. So family history probably is the most important thing. Now, there are other issues in terms of age. We know that the longer you live, the more likely you are to develop cancer. And prostate cancer particularly is a cancer that we see more commonly in patients who are of older age, that is men that are of older age. So the longer you live, the higher are the chances for you actually to develop prostate cancer. Other risk factors can, it's not really very concrete evidence of a very concrete link, but of course all these lifestyles that we label as being unhealthy, smoking, alcohol consumption, obesity, etc., may contribute to a certain extent to the developing of cancer.
Now, I beg for you to help me understand this. I've heard it quite a lot, and maybe you help us to demystify whether it is true or false. It is rumored that the more sexually active a man is, the lesser the chances are for them of getting or suffering prostate cancer as they grow older. True or false?
I can't say. You know, for us in medicine or science, there are no absolutes. Until you've specifically asked that question, you can't really say that's absolutely wrong. But from what we know, what is important as far as the science that we know for today, it's not a factor as far as either protection or promotion of prostate cancer.
Okay. Now, what are the signs and symptoms for easy identification? Because we know this is a month of awareness as far as prostate cancer is concerned. November, you know. So maybe you need to help us identify the signs and symptoms.
So I think signs are important in this particular cancer, but it's also possible to have the cancer without any sign. The patients who are going to develop signs, then that suggests that probably the disease has progressed a little bit. So I think we need to plug that in there, that we think of in terms of when you're at a certain age group, you begin to think of prostate cancer, and therefore you should consider what we call screening. But in patients who come because of symptoms, because the prostate is a gland that wraps around your urethra, that's the passage where the urine comes from the bladder to be voided outside. And because this is a tumor, that means it's growing. And that is growing, it causes compression effect on this tube or the urethra that is supposed to void out the urine. Therefore, some of the symptoms are going to really relate around that area. Problems passing urine. A man may need to push so hard for the urine to come out because of that compression. Others may have problems controlling urine. Others may see blood in the urine because, again, cancer cells can be fairly invasive, and they also grow and have blood cells, so you can bleed. Other aspects have to do, so we call those some of those obstructive symptoms. You struggle and the stream is poor, and then also you can have blood. Other aspects have to do with, you can also have sexual dysfunction or erectile dysfunction as part of the spectrum of symptoms that a man can experience. Now those are the local, and of course there might be pain. Those are the local symptoms. Now depending at what stage of disease the patient comes in, you may have more serious and more concerning symptoms. So if this disease has spread a little beyond the prostate, then you may also see difficulties in passing stool. You're going to have bone pains in the back as well as around the bones of the pelvis. You may also get problems with because the bones, when this disease begins to attack the bones, they are being more or less sort of compromised, that you can easily get fractures. So when those fractures happen, some men come in presenting with weakness of the limbs, or paralysis of the limbs, or burning in the limbs, meaning that the bones are broken and now they're beginning to compress on the nerves, and therefore you get these other symptoms. Of course, when it spreads to other parts, the lungs, other parts of the body, you may get a myriad of other symptoms based on where it has spread from. But the commonest symptoms are those that are local, and bone pain, as well as if you get fractures, then you get symptoms related to those fractures or those compression effects on the nerves.
Now you did mention about those that present without the symptoms, but in actual sense, the disease progression is there. How will they be able to know? You know, our traditional way of living is, for as long as I am well, I don't feel any pain, I can as well say that I am okay. Why should I go for diagnosis?
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. It's still a challenge for us. The literacy, I think broadly speaking, health literacy is fairly low. Now when you speak specifically of cancer literacy, that is even much lower. So I think we need to think of this in the context of age. Like I said, age is one of the major risk factors. The older you are, it becomes a fact of life that you have to begin thinking about cancer broadly, but for men specifically to think about prostate cancer.
What age bracket?
So again, there we need to contextualize. We don't have as much really well synthesized information for our settings, but what, say, the Europeans or the Americans recommend, in principle, a man 52 to 70 years should actually be screened for prostate cancer on a regular basis. Of course, we shall get into the issues of context of the choices and what that means in context of a particular individual. The other age group we think about, again, is 40 to 50 years, sort of a gray zone. You may find some doctors actually do recommend that maybe you screen from the age of 40. But that again depends on the context. If you are a man who has a very serious family history of cancers, like we mentioned before, or you've had relatives who have had prostate cancer, particularly if they had a very lethal trajectory where probably they died from that cancer, or they got that cancer from a slightly early age in life. Says early may not mean necessarily 40s or 50s, it can even be 60s in the context of this particular cancer, because it tends to be in the much later ages, like above 70. So if any of your relatives have had it below 70 years, I think you need to consider screening for it. Even between 40 and 50, you can start a little bit earlier compared to the general recommendation. And sometimes you can even you can put in another context of, if you have a relative who got it at 45, maybe you need to start 10 years earlier than that. So if the challenge is in us setting, people usually don't know for sure whether their family has had cancer, or people have died of cancer. So it's a fairly a weak recommendation as far as our society is concerned. People usually don't know what's going on in the rest of their family members. But I think if you suspect that somebody died of cancer, then for you, cancer screening in general should be something you think about, and at least 10 years earlier than when that person was diagnosed with cancer.
Now, many people are so afraid when you talk about cancer screening. It's one of those they feel should be a no-go area, you know. They really worry about it. And for them, when you talk about screening or diagnosis, the first thing that crosses their mind is a biopsy. So how is this specific diagnosis for prostate cancer done?
So I think first to address the issue of fear, I think people should not fear screening for cancer. Like they say, what you don't know can still kill you. So if you miss the opportunity to catch it early, then probably by the time it gives you problems for you to rush to the hospital, it may be fairly advanced, and you probably miss the opportunity for cure, or to actually be able to control this disease fairly well. Specifically speaking about prostate cancer screening, the tests are not perfect that we use. It's a combination of tests that are recommended. So we use a blood test called PSA in combination with a digital rectal exam. That is essentially what is recommended, that those two should be able to give the doctor, together with the patient, a sense of urgency in as far as what else needs to be done. The biopsy really comes after. Now, if you do present with symptoms, probably a biopsy is going to be part of that combination of things that is done. But I'm talking about a man who has no symptoms, is just simply, say, 50 years of age, and is come for a health check or a wellness workup, and we do a prostate test, PSA, in this respect, with a digital rectal exam. So once we do those tests, then the tests do inform us in as far as how do we move forward for the subsequent steps, which is usually a biopsy. Now, the PSA, again, like I said, most recommendations, mostly from the European countries and Americans, do put some sort of context that it has to be discussed with the patient, and the patient has to be introduced to the potential pathways after we screen what is likely to happen. So when we screen, the idea is if we find a problem, you should be willing to go through the process of actually addressing that problem. So if we did a PSA and it's high, okay, then you should be willing to go undergo a biopsy. And if we do a biopsy and we find that it's prostate cancer, then probably you should be willing to undergo the cancer-specific treatment.
Maybe you'll need to lay their fears about what and how is the biopsy done. For them, when you talk about biopsy, I'll tell you from the layman's perspective, they normally believe bakusalaka akanyama. I don't know whether that is it. Please help them to explain to them for the purposes of comfort and for the benefit of those who would like to have earlier screening done.
So if you're interested in screening, we don't begin with a biopsy. We begin with a PSA and a digital rectal exam. Now, if those are concerning, then we do a biopsy. Now, this biopsy is essentially an outpatient procedure, so it's not that invasive. And the doctor can either do it, they use a needle, it's a specialized needle, it's small, and can be guided either by the hands, okay? And they do pass it through the area where stool goes through. And they pick just a small amount of tissue. So it does not impair the functioning of the gland per se. Now, it can also be done via ultrasound guidance, so that the doctor goes for specific areas that are concerning. Of course, like anything, it's not without some side effects. It's not completely benign, but the side effects in the context of what you're trying to rule out or make sure is not there in terms of cancer is something that we accept as a fair trade-off. So some of the side effects of a prostate biopsy. So the biopsies, they take off really small tissue. So the issue is not the tissue, or that they have, you're going to have such a major problem. The issue is not the amount of the tissue, but because you're passing through where a stool goes, you can spread some infection, because we know that the passage for stool does contain some other foreign bacteria, and those can be introduced into the area where you're biopsying, in spite the preparations the doctors may try to do. Now, we usually try to offset this by giving some antibiotics. Of course, you can bleed. The procedure itself there might be some pain, but of course the doctor will give you something to minimize that pain. In a very few cases, you may have some transient or temporary effects on your sexual functioning, but those are in principle really very temporary, not really concerning. So those could be some of the issues we face, but the doctors have learned how to optimize this biopsy to make it as comfortable as possible, and also to offset those side effects.
Now, talking about the process that you've explained, what are the cost implications? Because certain times, some of these challenges come along with costs that some people might find a little bit difficult to meet. And where can it be done? Because it looks like at the rate at which and the way we are going, many people might require the service, but how and where they get the service might also be a problem.